Welcome back. In many areas of cattle country this spring, moisture has been adequate to abundant. And for many cattle producers, that means both their grass and the competing weeds are off to a strong start in this growing season. However, there are actions you can take to stop those weeds and grow more grass for your cattle. We learned more as Matt Fleck reports from Central Florida.
The Lightsey Cattle Company is a family operation with a long history, dating back to 1850 in Central Florida.
Our families just seem like ranched forever. That's all we ever talk about. And when I was a little kid, ever since I was a little bitty boy, my dream was to grow up and be a cowboy and marry my childhood sweetheart and raise 3 kids and have a bunch of grandkids and raise big fat Brayford cows and that's happy, and to have beautiful pastures and to kind of give back to the conservation. The land's been good to me. I want to take care of it and make it right.
Taking care of their land and cattle has always been top priority for Kerry and his brother Lane. But they made a big change a little over a decade ago. They quit mowing their pastures to knock weeds down and instead began spraying to control weeds and grow more grass.
In 2015, our cost of applying the herbicide was 1/2 of what it cost our neighbors to mow it 3 months later. You know, the old days of mowing, which was 11 years ago, we still had problems with mowing. You still had stubbles out there and you had less volume of grass. Your cattle wasn't quite as good condition. And now that we herbicide, it seems like we got more yield in the spring going into the summer than what we had before. And the cattle, of course, do better and they conceive better. We won't ever go back to doing summer mowing.
The results at Lightsey Cattle Company are easy to see. Grass is abundant and weeds are tough to find. There are several keys to the Lightsey's success. First, they get out and scout their pastures very early in the season when weeds are just beginning to emerge.
You know, everybody likes to spend a good day while the cattle are grazing to go check their cattle. And that's kind of when I check to see if the weeds are coming on. And I'll just drive around with my head sticking out of the door looking down, and then I mostly see colt's foot or dollarweed first. And I get out and just kind of check around, and pretty soon you start seeing a little goat weed or a little dog fennel just coming up. And one thing I found out, if you see one weed, whatever one it is, they're all there sprouted already, all sprout at the same time.
This particular ranch, they scout very early. They look for weeds when they're very, very small, somewhere in the 1 to 2 inch size. That requires getting out of the truck. You have to get out of the truck and actually look for the weeds. When we begin to emerge, they've found that their problem weeds are all emerging about the same time. So they can apply very early. That controls the weeds, sets up well for the dry period that's going to come in about a month.
Then, once the Lightseys know weeds are there and starting to grow, they work with their custom applicator to spray their pastures very early in the season, which in Central Florida usually means spraying in early to mid-March.
Treating weeds early is really beneficial to the rancher because you can actually save some money in that regard. Treating weeds early means different herbicides, different herbicide rates, and it also allows your grass to cover the ground quicker and help that grass compete with weeds that could emerge later in the growing season, hopefully stay ahead of those weeds.
Spraying weeds early in the growing season sets up very nicely for grass to capture the site. One of the things that we see with weed control, properly timed weed control, early weed control, is the grasses respond very quickly and then they capture the resources on the site and they help prevent later germination. So if you can establish that grass, if you can get that grass cover, that'll prevent a lot of later emerging weeds from coming up, along with the residual activity of the herbicide.
To get the control they want, the Lightseys take advantage of herbicides that offer residual activity, such as Grazon Next HL from Dow AgroSciences. The benefit is one early season application offers season-long control of weeds and an opportunity for more grass to grow.
I think one of the old adages is, you know, a pound of weeds lost is a pound of forage gained. And I believe that's true. When you get into this type of season, the growing conditions are just starting to ramp up, and you get your forage growing, and you're going to have more forage for those cattle to consume throughout the growing season.
This is a win-win for us. We're saving money. We got more grass for our cattle. And then we noticed that those spots where we did kill the weeds, the small weeds, there was some few little bare spots. And then within 2 weeks, they was covered up with grass that our cattle was grazing.
While planning ahead for weed control works best, even if a producer misses the optimum early application window, the experts say there's still an opportunity and a benefit to spraying pastures for weed control, even when it gets a little later in the season.
Usually in a pasture, there's a mixture of weeds that are problems. So even if you miss some of the early weed problems, there's probably other weeds out there that you're dealing with, kind of either in as a mosaic or just part of the total plant community. So it's never wrong as long as the weeds are not wilting. You know, you can make an application later in the season. Keep in mind that the grass response probably will not be as quick for canopying back over the sites. It'll be a trade-off as far as how much level of control that you're getting, but it's still going to be better than doing nothing.
If you do miss that early window of application, I think there's other programs that we can find. Again, it's going to depend on your weed species, but as the weeds start to increase, we're looking at possibly different products or maybe a little bit stronger in efficacy and probably higher rates as well. So it's not a lost cause. I mean, it's something that we can still combat. And still, if we're in May, we still have 4 or 5 months of good growing weather to get our forages growing and get ground cover and keep those weeds from competing with our forages for the remainder of the year.
For the Lightsey family, the decision to control weeds is an easy one. They see the benefits on their pastures, and the cost of spraying is an investment that pays real dividends.
If a rancher asks me, you know, why does our pastures look like that? And I explained to him we herbicide early in the year, and the money that we save from it, and the volume of grass that we receive from it, and the condition of our cattle maintaining better from having the weeds gone. And I'd like to see other ranchers do it, and it's economically, it's a better way for us to go.
In Central Florida, I'm Matt Fleck, reporting for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Now, if you'd like to control your weeds now and grow more grass for your cattle through the rest of the grazing season, a good way to get started is with this free range and pasture weed identification guide offered by Dow AgroSciences. To get your free copy of the guide, just call toll-free 1-866-USA-BEEF. And for more information on weed control options, be sure to check out the website rangeandpasture.com.